Hi everyone, it's author L.A Detwiler.
Hello everyone, this is Borna Kazerani from Melbourne, Australia. I hope you're doing fine. First of all, thank you so much for all your lovely comments and great feedback regarding on my show here on Instagram. And today I'm gonna have a conversation with L.A Detwiler, who was born in 1988 and lives in Pennsylvania. She's a US Today best-selling author with Ivan books, Harper Collins, and a high school English teacher. She began writing her first novel, Voice of Innocence, during her final year in college. It was published in 2015. She published 10 more novels after Voice of Innocence. Book 1 in her Lines in the Sand series, Inked Hearts, was named a top picky by Romance Time in 2017. In 2018, wrote One Reads named Remember When as a romance pick of the year by the Pennsylvania Center of the Book, and also earned the 5-star seal from Reader's Choice Reviews. Several of her other titles, including Who We Were, and All of You, became Amazon best sellers in their categories. At the end of 2017, L.A Detwiler began writing her debut thriller, The Widow Next Door, which released in 2018. She is continuing to write novels in the genre, enjoying dark, twisty plots and dedication to creepy realism. The One Who Got Away released in February of 2020, followed by The Diary of the Serial Killer's Daughter in March. Her next release, A Tortured Soul, comes out in August of 2020. Now let me ask L.A to join me for a conversation. Hello!
Hi!
Hi, how are you doing?
We're great, how are you?
I'll try my best to be okay. Yeah, it's such a crazy time. Could you please put a camera a little bit up that I could have your heads also in the frame?
Yep.
Yeah, I've been trying my best to be okay, but such a crazy circumstances, all of us actually dealing in such crazy days in the world. So I've got a lot of questions for you, but before I'm gonna start my questions, would you like to say hi to those who are watching us now and later?
Hi.
Yeah, but
All right, so I'm gonna talk to you, chat first. All right, so I'm glad you're here today, and I'm glad you're sitting next to each other. Perfect setup. Thank you. So I know that your husband plays a big role in your life, and in addition to being a husband, he accompanies you along the way when you're writing a book. can you both tell me a bit about this collaboration? It's up to you. Any one of you wants to start.
Yeah. So a lot of times what happens is my wife will have an idea for a book, and she will come to me with that idea and just kind of discuss it, because I watch a lot of, I'm real big into horror, thriller, everything. And we'll talk about it a bit, and then she'll go and she does, I mean, she writes very fast. So she'll do her writing, and then as she's writing, she will bring me sections to read, just as kind of like a content, because my grammar stuff's terrible, but it's like a content thing. And then when we were doing anything, when we would go to like book signings and stuff like that, I would do the driving and the heavy lifting and setting everything up.
And he's just been really instrumental in the process, because he's also really the one that encourages me to pursue my dream, because writing is not always the easiest career. It's easy to get down. It can be a roller coaster, but he's the one that really cheers me on when I feel like quitting. He's the one that encouraged me when I was thinking about making the leap from romance to thrillers. He's the one that really encouraged me to do that and really gave me the confidence to do that.
Because I really don't like romance. And when she's like, oh, I might do like horror thriller, I'm like, please do that. I'm like, that would be just. And when she read her first book, it was Voice of Innocence. She just wanted to write a book. She wasn't really going to do anything with it. And then I had kind of talked her into, sending it out to these publishers. And because I told her, I said, the worst they're going to say is no. And then you're never going to talk to them again. I'm like, you might as well just send it out. And that's kind of what started the whole journey here.
Absolutely.
I'm very lucky that I have somebody like Chad next to you, seriously, because it usually doesn't happen in anyone's life probably. So it's really rare. And thank you for being encourager or great supporter. And I'm sure that you're her first critic also.
Yes. Yeah, I will. I really, well, because I mean, it's my wife. I don't really have to hold back when, if I see something that I think doesn't make sense, or something that I feel has been done a lot, like, then I could be like, well.
He's very honest in a kind way, but that's really good, because then when I wrote my first thriller, The Widow Next Door, I really expected him to come back and say, stick to romance. This did not work. But when he came back and said to me, wow, are you okay? That creeped me out. I knew then that I could have the confidence in it, because I knew he wouldn't lie.
And it was. I was reading it before, and I'd have it like on my phone, and I'd read through it, and I was like, it's not bad. I'm like, it wasn't cheesy. It wasn't, because like she'd done the romance for so long. When she's like, well, I'm going to do a horror thriller, I'm like, here we go. But it was. I'm like, this is really good. I'm like, you had a really good start here.
Okay, that's good. That's good. And what do you do for work yourself, Chad?
I'm a welder.
Oh, guys, two extreme different things that you're doing at the same time, probably.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right, that's good. So, one of the reasons L.A. Is that the way that I have to pronounce your name? Is that L.A. or L.A.? How should I say it?
Either is fine. My first name is Lindsay, so in romance I go by L.A Detwiler. For thriller and horror, they wanted to differentiate, so it's L.A Detwiler. Those are just my initials. So.
Okay, L.A. I'm gonna win that. So one of the that I want to talk to you is a genre you've chosen in recent years, thriller. And I read this kind of books whenever I want to get a little out of the reality of real world and give myself or give my brain a break or watch a thriller. And as Chad was saying, actually, when you started at the beginning, you were just writing the romance. Mm-hmm. And now my question for you is that where did you become interested in writing the books in this genre, and why are you interested in thriller genre?
Yeah, so when I got interested in the thriller genre, I've always been interested in the genre. Actually, when I would read more thriller books than I read romance books, to be honest with you. But at that point in my career, I had written about 10 romances. And I just got to this point where I felt like I had said everything I wanted to say in the romance genre. I felt like I had told all of the stories that were really important to tell for me. And I really just, one day we were talking, Not to put a bad image in your head, but we were actually in our whirlpool tub, and we perhaps were having some adult beverages. And we just got to talking about how I really wanted to write a book that was plot heavy, that had those twists and shocking turns, but I just didn't know if I could do it. And I didn't know if I had the right idea. But I was always interested in that kind of thing. So my husband actually said to me, at the time, I really liked putting elderly women in my romances. Like, there's always a grandma character in there. I don't know why, I just always do. So he kind of took that idea and said to me, what if you wrote from an elderly widow's perspective? Like, what if you took that idea of like the elderly woman looking out her window, because we have those women in our neighborhood who watch out their window, who know everything about us. Like, if your car is gone, they're like, oh, where were you? I noticed you were gone this many days. So we said, what if we took that idea and made it creepy? And from there, that's where The Widow Next Door was born. I just became really obsessed with telling this old lady's story who was just looking out her window and observing the neighbors. And I just really became obsessed with telling her story. So that's how I got started in the genre. When I wrote that book, I really didn't expect it to go anywhere either. I kind of just wrote it because it was bothering me not to. And then of course I finished the book, and that's when I gave it to him and said, look, you need to be honest. If this is terrible, tell me, because I'll just stick to romance. And that's when he read it and he said, I think you have something. And since then, I think I've really found my place in the thriller horror genre because it's so much freer. In romance, there's an equation almost you have to follow. I have a book called Remember When that I wanted the ending to be extremely different than what it ended up being. But the publisher said, if you're writing romance, it has to have the happy ending. You can't have anything but a happy ending. And to me, I like to write realistically. And in the thriller and horror genre, I can pretty much do whatever I want. And I've really found that freeing.
Nobody has to survive in a horror.
Nobody has to survive, so.
Well, that's true. So that's unfortunately something that I wrote a book. It took me 7 years to write my book. It's published. It's not about me. It's about you today. So, but when sometimes you approach the publishers, they're kind of trying to navigate you the way they prefer, not what they want, because they think actually they know better, and which I don't believe that it's always the case. And because they think that your book is going to like hit it, but sometimes it's not like that. I'm sure you encountered with lots of them, and as I mentioned, so on your biography, you are a US Today best-selling author, and I would congratulating you definitely for that. And you tried really, really hard, or probably both of you. Okay, and I'm sure you probably rejected a lot of time from wrong people, all right? So, and do you like to share some of your experiences with me and also the audiences or the audience, and tell me, how did you manage yourself mentally to ignore those rejections and just keep walking towards success?
Yeah, Lindsay, how did you do that?
So I'm going to let him take that one because otherwise he'll interrupt me for this one.
Well, like, here's one of the things that happened is I'm a glass half full person. I have a sunny disposition. And when she first got, like, here's a really good example. When she first got picked up by a publisher for her first book, she was super excited. I came home one day and she was crying. I came home from work. She wouldn't tell me what was wrong. So I'm like looking for pets. I thought something happened. And it turns out that she got a message from that publisher saying that they had gone bankrupt and they would not be doing her book.
My very first book.
Her very first one. So, yeah, so she was distraught. And I told her, I said, if you did it once, you can do it again. I'm like, so just send it out to more people. And so that's what she did. And then another publisher decided to pick it up. And it was the same thing with when you would get a rejection from someone who's just like, oh, we don't want this. And I tell her, I'm like, well, they're busy. they're there to make money. They're looking for the next big thing. I said, maybe your book just wasn't for them, but it will be for someone else. I'm like, there are lots and lots of publishers out there and readers. I'm like, you just have to keep sending it to, and I said, don't send it to like, well, these are first, I said, send it to the biggest people you can think of. The worst they're going to say is no.
Yeah.
And that's really what.
So I think as an author, it's important that you find someone like that to be in your corner, because it's hard to be objective with your own work. It is so easy to take those rejections personally and to just feel like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this.
And then even reviews. We went to the point where if she got 100 good reviews and got one bad one, that was the one she focused on, and she would be distraught. To now, like if she gets, we just ignore it. We might joke about it, like something they had said, but and we just move on.
So if you have someone that can like boost you up like that, it gets easier with time. It does, because I did take it personally in the beginning. It's hard not to. When you pour yourself into a book, you pour some of yourself into it, even if it's fiction, and then to have some of the mean comments. I mean, the one that we talk about, when I first started in romance, my very first book, one of the early reviews for Voice of Innocence on Goodreads, it was literally just a puke face emoji.
That's all they put.
And that's all they put. And I was devastated. But now we can look back objectively and say, you know what? It wasn't for that person. It's okay. It doesn't mean the whole book is a puke face emoji.
Even Stephen King said, Stephen King had one of those, I forget what's it called, with the pen that you put papers on.
Oh, I don't know.
He had one of those that he used to put all of his rejections on. And he said he thought later in his career about publishing, would like take the names of the people out, but all the rejections he got. Because they're like, look how big he is. And he had hundreds of rejections trying to get started.
Yeah.
And I used to remind her of that too all the time. I'm like, no one, like, it just takes time. You have to find the right kind of company for you.
And I think too, as a reader and a reviewer, it kind of makes you realize how important those reviews can be, that if you like a book, you need to tell the author, because you never know when that kind message or that, hey, I really liked your book, will boost you up. Because I know for me that happened quite a few times where I get bad reviews, but then someone would send me a review about how much they liked my book, and it could be enough to kind of turn the tide and help you find that confidence again. So I think for new authors, it's important to find that support system, whether it's in real life or even online. There are a lot of great groups on Instagram and on Facebook where you can find that kind of support.
Of course. When are you going to write your book, Chad?
we have dabbled with the idea.
We're kind of dabbling with it now. We're kind of working on a project we've just gotten started on that we're both going to be working on in the thriller horror genre, which I'm really excited about because he does have really good ideas and he loves the process. He's very creative. So I keep telling him he needs to go for it.
It shows me, like, yeah, it's quite obvious. So probably just start to write, I don't know, just write a book together, you know.
That's what we're leaning towards. Yeah.
Yeah, and because both of you seems are quite creative, and apart from that, you're very realistic, and that's amazing. You know what? Because when you're talking about you've been rejected from those who rates into your book or the genre you've written, or that's I love the way that actually you're talking. So
thank you.
You're welcome. And now, Lindsay, I want to take you back 2 years ago when you realized that you are interested to become a writer. However, the major which you studied at the university was completely different. I was just reading your biography and said, what was she doing? And what is she? Very different. So
I don't know what I was doing, to be honest. No. So I actually always wanted to be a teacher. That was always my goal. I loved writing, and looking back, I would say I was always a writer. I was always writing stories. In 6th grade, I actually started writing my first chapter book. So I think it was always there, but it wasn't something I felt was realistic, because to me, that wasn't a real job you could actually have. I came from a very practical family that wanted me to go to college and get a job that would pay the bills, which I appreciate now. So when I got out of high school, I actually, instead of majoring in teaching, I kind of had a little crisis, and I went for accounting because I liked math at the time.
And I told you, I told her, I'm like, you are going to hate it.
And I did. So while I majored in accounting, I minored in English, and I found that I loved my English classes. So after I finished my accounting degree, I actually stayed and got my teaching certificate in English. But I still never thought I'd be a writer. Like, that wasn't on the radar. It was a crazy bucket dream of mine, but it wasn't until my last year of college that I started actually writing my first book. Still not thinking it would go anywhere.
I see. Okay. And then you quit everything. You studied 2 different majors. You've got a BM in 2 different majors. One is mechanics, one is English. Like, teaching. Yep.
So, then I became an English teacher, and I'm still an English teacher by day. So I do the English teaching, which allows me to really share my love for books and writing with the kids, which is great. And then I'm also an author now.
Of course. Absolutely. So now I want to talk to me about, I don't know if you've ever experienced self-publishing, and then what's the best approach to the publishing houses or book agencies? So there are 2 different questions. The first one, have you experienced self-publishing? Have you, okay, and then answer the second question, please.
Okay. So yes, actually, this is my first year I've stepped out on my own for self-publishing. So in March, I released The Diary of a Serial Killer's Daughter. And actually, my book coming out next month, A Tortured Soul, is self-published. And that decision for me was about creative control. I wanted to be able to take charge of the stories I wanted to tell without having to fit a mold. And I really wanted to lean more horror, which isn't always accepted in some of the bigger publishers. So for me, it was really just about not censoring myself, about finally having that confidence to be able to step out and say, this is the story I want to tell. And so that's what it's been for me. And I was really nervous at first coming from a big publisher to self-publishing. I wasn't sure how I'd feel about it, but I'm so glad I did it now, because I'm finding that I'm having more fun, having that freedom back.
You like being in charge.
I do. I do like being in control as well of my career and what I'm releasing and when. So that's been great. Now, on the flip side, for authors starting out, self-publishing is very difficult. It is a lot of work because you are in charge of everything. So I feel like, for me, the path I took, going from a small publisher, then to a big publisher, and now to self-publishing, it's been really good because I've learned so much. I think if I would have self-published my first book, I wouldn't have known enough to do it the right way, because there's so many different pieces to it. I think it can be done. I think you just really have to be willing to put in the research, because there's the cover and the editing and all the different pieces. So for me, I think this worked out the best way. I think authors looking at self-publishing, I definitely think it's a great way to go. You just have to be willing to work really hard and do your research, because you have to be your own advocate.
Why did you make up your mind to do the self-publishing? So what was a problem, or why did you want to publish your book? So weren't you, because you weren't happy with the way probably your previous books were published through the different publishers, or no, you wanted just to give it a try, to see, give it a go?
I really just wanted to give it a try and see. Like I said, I just wanted to see what it would be like to have the complete control over my story. Because, for example, The Widow Next Door, I did have to change some things for the publisher. When you go with a big publisher, you do have to work with them. The ending to The Widow Next Door is completely different than what I had in mind. And so for me, self-publishing has given me back that control over my story, because I think as an English teacher too, I'm so big on authors having that creative control and not censoring themselves. And so for me, that's been the pull of self-publishing.
And it's also, I think, because back in the day, you really did need a publisher to put money behind to get your book out there. But with the internet, you can reach everyone for the cost of internet.
Yeah, but the competition is quite high when you do this.
Yes, it's very high.
Yes.
I haven't done it, but that's my assumption. So this is something that you both been through. So you as a writer and you as her manager, or whatever you do for her, or like, you know, managing everything together. That's what I believe. So I believe it's like a hard working, because you're also, as you mentioned prior, so you're charged in everything. In plus, the advertising, it takes one of the most important role, you know, when you want to publish a book that you're gonna self-publishing book.
Yeah. So it is a lot of work. I enjoy it though. I enjoy the challenge of trying to figure it out. And, you know, advertising takes a lot of creativity too, and thinking about how you're going to reach readers. He's also got a really good marketing mind. So he comes up with a lot of different tactics for us to do. And also I think for me, you know, since the beginning, this journey has been about writing books because it's my passion, not necessarily my first career. And that definitely takes some of the pressure off, because I don't, you know, I still have my main career. This is, you know, a secondary career for me. So that's taken that pressure off and allowed me to enjoy it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, yeah, and that's very interesting. Sorry, I just got distracted with what's written on your shirt. It says Pennsylvania.
Oh, it's just PlayStation. Yeah, the original PlayStation.
Where's that I couldn't see.
Oh, okay.
That's fine. Well, I've got a few questions, but I want to give you a break. So I want to give myself a break. I want to enjoy. So I want you to like pick up the phone and give us a tour and just and you know that you've been live so many times, so you can reverse the camera and there you go and do whatever you.
All right. So we are set up actually in my writing nook. So it's kind of like moved a little bit, but this is my writing desk in the corner of our living room. This is where I do all my writing. Chad actually set this up for me last year. We have a really small house, but I love this little corner because during the day, there's a window here, of course, and during the day there's a tree and you can see out onto our little street in our small town. So it's just like a really peaceful spot of the house. So this is where I do all my work. I do all my writing on my laptop. I don't handwrite because I'm a really fast typer, so it's just more efficient. I have a picture of us. Chad's gonna get mad because he hates this picture, but this is us in high school. That is like 11th grade, so that's on my desk. And then also he's gonna laugh and groan, but I'm an Outlander fan, big time. So I've got my little Outlander calendar. Today's picture is not very good because it's not Jamie, but you know, it'll be okay. So that's where I do most of my writing. And then we're gonna show you the most important part of our household tour, probably the most popular, which is this big guy right here. He is just chewing on a toy, but this is Henry. He is Henry, look up.
Hey, boy.
Come here. He is our American Mastiff. There we go. He is 7 years old. And he's
probably around 205, 210 pounds.
So he's huge. But he actually shows up in all of my novels just because I'm obsessed with him. So he has a little cameo in every single book. Like in The Widow Next Door, he shows up just for a sentence. But in my next book, A Tortured Soul, he has a big role, a big scary role. In fact, people on Instagram reached out and when they saw his picture the other day and were like, oh, I keep thinking of the Henry from Tortured Soul. But in real life, he's just a couch potato. You can see he just hangs out, but he's our big guy. And then I'm going to show you next. So while I'm over here doing my writing and reading and all of that, I'm going to show you where Chad's at.
First, this was her office originally when we got the house, but she didn't use it. She came out here to write, so that's why I took it over.
Look at him defending himself. This is his man cave, his gaming cave, where he's at.
Oh, wow.
This is, yeah.
So he's got his little gaming setup, because he's always gaming when I'm writing, and then he's got his little tribute to thriller and horror, which I told you he loves. So we've got the Jaws poster.
That's an original.
That's his favorite movie. And then he's going to show you the cool thing from last year.
Yeah, so this was one of the high points in my life. This is Kane Hodder. He played Jason in Friday the 13th, and I think parts 8 through 12.
So we got to meet him last year.
So I got to meet him, and then he actually signed. I have a movie replica mask that he signed for me.
Ah, interesting. Chat.
So this is our little thriller horror shrine that he's got going in his man cave. So when I'm writing, this is usually where he's at. And then we'll walk you back to where we were.
House very small.
Yeah, we have a small house. We live in a really small town.
That's okay. Ollie, so yes, that's what exactly I want to ask you to show me your bookshelf.
Yep. So this is one of my bookshelves I have, and I'll show you at the very top. When I had my first book published, it was Voice of Innocence. Chad actually got this for me from Nicholas Sparks, The Notebook. It still is my favorite movie, my favorite book by Nicholas Sparks. And if you look, it says, "Congratulations on your first book." So I was really excited that he got me that first Christmas.
I found a way to contact him.
So, and then the top shelf is a collection of all my titles, my romances. There's A Tortured Soul, which comes out next month. I have Voice of Innocence here. So this was my very first book.
Okay, show me.
So Voice of Innocence. And then Tortured Soul is the one that's coming out next month. That's my self-pubbed.
Okay.
I'm excited about that. And then I just also have just a bunch of books that I'm reading. I'm actually working through the Outlander series right now just because I love Outlander too. And then I've got some of my favorite thrillers and horrors I pulled. I really love Stuart James. He's an amazing horror writer. Ruth Ware. Baby Teeth was one of my favorite books last summer, so I've got a bunch of different books. This is one of my bookshelves. I have another one upstairs and one in my classroom. And a lot of times, actually, like, I know people get possessive of their books. I tend to give them away. Like, when I finish reading a book, I never reread them. So I tend to kind of give them to friends that will read them. So I tend to pass them on. So a lot of times, like, my favorite books stay on the shelf were books with sentimental value. And there's a picture of Henry when he was a baby.
So I want you to go back to, I want to shift the camera towards the soul.
Oh.
And, talk to me about this book, please.
Yeah, sure. So this book comes out next month. It is a really dark book. Like, reviewers are talking about how it's definitely disturbing. It is focused on domestic abuse. So it's about a woman who loses her baby and her husband is a monster. Like you find out on page 1, he is a horrible man. He's extremely abusive. He goes missing early on in the book. And you think, you know, it's going to be your typical thriller, husband's missing, who did it? But it's not. Like, you start to realize there are dark secrets about her as well. So it has a lot of like that thriller edge to it, psychological thriller, but it also has some major twists at the end that you won't see coming. This is probably my favorite book I've written so far. It's definitely, I think just because, I don't know, I just felt very passionately about telling the story. I felt like even though it was a horror fiction, it makes an important statement about domestic abuse and about not censoring domestic abuse, because I think some books don't really paint the true horrific picture of it. And I really wanted to write a book where I just went all in. I didn't censor. It offends some people because it's so dark, but I wanted people to realize there are people living that hell in the world. So for me, it's probably my proudest, one of my books I'm most proud of.
Okay, so, all right, so, yeah, that's what you're saying, actually, regarding of, like, there are large number of books involved that you're talking about kind of about the censorship, am I right? Like,
yes.
So, okay, and you didn't want to do that, because I disagree to many, like, writers or authors that when they're writing a book about, like, a domestic, for example, domestic violence, so
yes.
They because they don't want show it as harsh as the title is.
Yes. Yes. So for me, it was really important just to paint the story that was in my mind and not tone it down to please anyone. And like I said, I knew that would maybe alienate some readers, but I also knew there would be readers who would be able to handle it and who would get the message, which is that domestic abuse is horrible, and there are monsters in the world like the man in this book. So
okay, and can you please show me the close-up of the book? I want to say, can you go closer to the book? Yeah. Who designed the cover?
So I actually had a cover designer do that. It was yeah, so I went online and had them design it. I did not design it. I am not good at art, but I was really drawn to this cover. Because it's the window, it's the bright blue curtain, and there's a window in the story that's really important. So I just felt like it fit.
Okay. I don't want to make you tired. Thank you so very much. Could you please go back and sit on the couch?
Yep, we're headed back. Chad has to move a cat from a seat.
There are people, I'm unsure that actually if I'm able to reach them because I haven't finished my questions yet. So. And thank you so very much, both of you. I want you to talk to me about one of your latest books, which is called The One Who Got Away.
Okay.
What is that book?
Yes, so that is my second book with Harper Collins. One More Chapter is the imprint. It is set in a nursing home. And it's actually inspired by real life, sort of. I should say sort of, so people don't get freaked out. So the story behind that was I was trying to come up with my second book for Harper Collins because it was a 2-book contract. And I was visiting my grandfather who lives in a nursing home. And when I went there, he was actually in his wheelchair. And he was just kind of wheeling back and forth. And he was saying, they're all dead now, which was really eerie to me. Eventually, when I talked to him, I realized he was talking about his family, which was really sad. He was talking about how they were all gone and they had all passed away. But for me, I took that and kind of just ran with it in a thriller direction of, like, you know, setting a thriller in a nursing home. So it's about this lady named Adeline who goes into a nursing home. She has dementia. But weird things start to happen to her in this nursing home, and her family doesn't believe her because they think it's just the dementia talking. So it's this story set in the nursing home. It also flashes back to her early life in the 50s when there was a serial killer loose in her town. And then the stories kind of weave together.
Well, okay. Lots of messages came through that is there any one of your books the audio is like an audio is being audioed or is available audiobook?
I'm actually in the process of working on that. Tortured Soul is going to be an audiobook. It's going to release hopefully on the same day as the book. And then we're working on some of my backlist of getting them into audio. So the answer is yes, they're coming.
Okay, perfect. My last question that nowadays we're talking about Black Lives Matter, all right? And I've spoken with lots of people around the world, in particular to those from who are from Africa, from that sort of part of the world. I want you to give me your opinion about each one of you. Tell me about your opinion about this title, and in particular you, because you are a teacher at school. You know what I mean? You've been working and teaching different range of students, with different backgrounds probably, or heritage backgrounds.
Yes.
What do you think about that? And then I will ask Chad the same question.
For me, I think just the biggest thing is I've always, in teaching especially, I've always tried to teach with empathy and with understanding, and I do my absolute best to teach that to the students. It's not a perfect world. Not everyone has that view, and I understand that. And I know I'm not going to change that in 42 minutes a day in the classroom necessarily. But for me, it's always been important about treating everyone with kindness, about doing my best to model for the students what it means to not only be empathetic, but to really try to understand other people and other people's views. So I really, especially as a literature teacher, focus on showing different views, different situations, different sides of the story. I try really hard to do that. I know I'm not perfect, but that's always been my goal in the classroom and outside of the classroom. I try to live my life in a way where I'm accepting as I can be and really let my actions speak for that. So.
With me, it's the same. I don't judge people because you will never know what someone's going through or what their life is like. Even if you're looking at it from the outside, people don't show people what they're going through. A lot they hide that, and you just kind of have to assume that it's just don't judge. It's like I've worked with people of all different races and backgrounds, and we all get along because we don't judge each other, because we all know that everyone has crap going on in their life and stuff, and it's best just to try to help each other and try to be understanding, but not you don't know.
Life is hard, and that's what I've learned from teaching too, is that like he said, you might think someone has it all perfect and everything looks great, especially on social media, but it might not be. And so I like what you said, like you have to go at it as everyone has stuff going on in their lives. Don't make it worse. Like, don't be part of the burden and add to that. And so I really try to teach the kids that too.
Absolutely. It was so lovely talking to both of you guys.
Thank you
for your time, and I'm glad it happened. And is there anything else that you want to mention and I didn't ask you?
Just for people watching, especially people who want to get into writing, because I think that's one of the things that when she does like her like writing tips stuff, people really like that. Don't get discouraged. It is hard. I don't have a book out. I understand that I'm looking at it from the outside. It is hard. If you're getting, you need to concentrate on the good stuff and the good feedback. I know that when someone has something negative said to them, that's pretty much what you focus on. You need to just not do that. You need to, and not worry about what other people think. You need to tell the story you want to tell, and then just do what you want to do, and keep the supportive people close, and people who are just being toxic, just ignore them and kind of try to shut them out and do your own thing.
And I think, too, you have to realize you're not going to be perfect out of the gate. It's a learning process. Even Stephen King is probably still learning things and growing as a writer. So I think remembering that it really is about the journey and about growing and about exploring who you are and what your voice is. And I think, too, like you said, everyone has a story to tell. You just have to find the courage to tell it. And I think that's a really powerful thing to remember.
I agree 100%. That's absolutely great. Guys, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate both of you. So, did you like our conversation?
Yes, it was wonderful. Thank you so much for having us. We had a really good time talking about everything.
Yeah, this was nice.
Thank you. This was wonderful. Thanks for doing what you're doing. It's really great.
Thank you. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate that. I'm going to say goodbye to you and hopefully see you one day in reality.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing.
All right, guys. Love you both. Keep doing what you're doing, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. We'll see ya.
Have a good one.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for watching us. I had a great conversation with L.A Detwiler and her husband Chad. If you want to find out more about them or about LA, you can go to her page. And I'm sorry I didn't get a chance as often to go through your questions here. And you can check it out. Check them out actually, and check her out on their Instagram. Love y'all. Take care. Keep your smile. Bye.